Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane. It's the morning. It's a beautiful morning. Wednesday, the 18th of April, 2018. And apparently today is going to be one of the warmest days of the year so far. And tomorrow might be even warmer. So, enjoy this great weather. Because, unfortunately, humanity is very definitely under attack right now in a very big way. And, for the last 4 years, I've put out regular broadcasts under the title of Humanity versus Insanity, and looking at the absolute absurdity of the establishment agenda, which simply put does not have humanity's best interests at heart by any stretch of the imagination. And the title of this morning's broadcast is War, Fracking, Nuclear Waste Disposal and 5G. And I could quite understand why it is that people go, I just don't want to know. I want to go bury my head in the sand and not take account of what's occurring, and maybe it'll go away. Yeah, it's a nice idea, but on the other hand, maybe it won't. The reality is, sadly, that the vast majority of people will do exactly that. They will bury their head in the sand, either literally or metaphorically, and prefer just to get on with their daily lives. And provided they're not under immediate threat, i.e. in the next 5 minutes or next hour or even next 24 hours, then they'll just keep ignoring it. And sadly, we got a problem with the wind here. It's even taken my muffler off the microphone here, so just 1 second. Let's try and get that back on. Beautiful day, but it is a bit windy. There we go. So the establishment wants to try and keep people literally with their heads in the sand, but fortunately an increasing number of people are beginning to actually realize that if they get involved, then they become one of an increasing band of people that are challenging the establishment. And obviously events such as what's recently occurred here in the UK with the Skripal affair and the subsequent attack in Syria has actually served to wake more people up, to get more people to question, because the very simple observation that the Skripal affair and the subsequent attack on Syria were both narratives put forward by the British establishment without a shred of irrefutable evidence. And in fact, Rand Paul, who is the son of Senator Ron Paul, and Rand himself is a senator now, and he says, I still look at the attack and say, either Assad must be the dumbest dictator on the planet, or just maybe he didn't do it. I have yet to see any evidence that he did do it. And Rand Paul made that observation in an interview a couple of days ago with CNN. He went on to say, the only thing that would galvanize the world to attack Assad directly is a chemical attack. It killed apparently very few people compared to what can be the number that can be killed with traditional bombs. And so you have to wonder, really, what logic there would be for Assad to use chemical weapons. Now, there is a man who is capable of independent thought and doesn't just get carried along by the wave of the establishment narrative. And of course, Jeremy Corbyn is just such an individual. Now, I'm going to make an observation in a little while about why it is that I have pushed for people to get behind Jeremy Corbyn. But it may not be the reason that many people think. But he's asking the right questions. And of course, the establishment, the right-wing establishment, you've got to bear in mind that most of the right-wing press is owned by multi-billionaires who actually live offshore and are effectively manipulating the consciousness of the British public for their own personal gain. Rupert Murdoch once upon a time bragged that he was effectively able to determine the outcome of a general election in the UK simply by what he posted on the front page of The Sun on a given, well, on the election day, basically. But with the readership dropping like a stone, he can no longer make that claim. And, you know, there's two reasons why readership is dropping and why viewership of the traditional propaganda mediums like the BBC are falling. And one is obviously because people are getting more and more information online. But secondly, it is because people are realizing that basically these rags put out a narrative. And that narrative is one that is self-serving. Whereas if they look around and use the online medium in addition to the rag narrative, then they are able to build a picture based on looking at information from multiple sources and using the powers of discretion and discernment to discern for themselves what actually might be the truth. And certainly when a narrative is put forward with zero supporting evidence, then funnily enough, an increasing number of people are going, well, hang on a goddamn second, because this isn't actually stacked up. So Jeremy Corbyn is asking the right questions. Jeremy Corbyn is obviously encouraging people who have the opportunity to vote on May the 3rd in local authority elections to use that vote wisely. And as I acknowledged yesterday, I know there are many people within the anti-fracking community, within the activist community, that find the prospect of actually voting absolute anathema to their philosophy. But here's the reason that I would like to see Jeremy Corbyn in number 10. Because whilst there is hope, then people actually avoid taking any positive action. And at the moment, Jeremy Corbyn provides that hope that there may be an alternative that is somewhat more conducive towards the future of humanity than the current incumbent, the war criminal Theresa May. Well, the reality is that when Jeremy Corbyn does get into number 10, assuming he does get into number 10, he is going to very quickly realise how little authority and how little autonomy he actually has. Now, Tony Blair was the consummate liar, of course, because he was a barrister. So the consummate liar, and he was able to carry off the charade that he was actually calling the shots. And that's why Gordon Brown, although living next door to Tony Blair for 11 years and very close to the seat of power, but it wasn't until Gordon Brown actually went into the role of Prime Minister that he learned firsthand how little authority he had and how much effectively of a charade the role of Prime Minister really is. And, you know, I made an observation back in 2006 in a presentation called The Hidden Agenda that Gordon Brown would never be elected as a Prime Minister. He would never be allowed to become Prime Minister because there was the prospect that he might actually balk and not do the bidding of those who think they are the rightful rulers of this planetary fiefdom. So Gordon Brown now has the honour of being the only Prime Minister of the UK in the 21st century that isn't a war criminal. Because the other three incumbents, Tony Blair, David Cameron and Theresa May, are undoubtedly war criminals. They are guilty of breaches of international law by launching unprovoked attacks on other sovereign nations. And of course, the Tory government is launching this multi-pronged attack, because if they're not trying to drag us into war, then they are trying to frack right across the country, particularly here in the north, although I'm at the southern end of that, in the southeastern corner of the Bowland Shale here in North Nottinghamshire. But nonetheless, the Tory agenda is apparently to frack right across the north of England and have a network of deep wells. Well, fortunately, there does seem to be an increasing awareness of this agenda and an increasing desire to thwart that agenda. And of course, look no further than the recent decision in North Yorkshire to implement an exclusion zone of 500 metres following the lead of Dallas back in 2013, when the city of Dallas implemented a 1,500 foot, 500 yards exclusion zone. So North Yorkshire, they're following the Dallas lead and the industry acknowledging that it is effectively a ban. Well, on the basis that the North Yorkshire Minerals and Waste Plan is one of the first to be discussed in the country, then hopefully other counties will follow that same lead. And of course, the oil and gas industry is doing the only thing it seems to know how to do now, which is threaten to take everybody to court. Well, good luck with that, because every time you make that threat, then of course you just shoot yourselves in the foot again. So the fracking agenda, but as you know, I've also acknowledged now for the last sort of 4 years, there is the distinct prospect that the fracking agenda is simply a red herring, and that the real purpose of getting this network of deep boreholes across the north of England is for the disposal of toxic nuclear waste. Now, we are now coming into the last 48 hours or so of the consultation period for the white paper that was produced back in January, the consultative document on the construction of a deep underground facility for the disposal of toxic nuclear waste. And this document actually discusses the prospect that this may not actually be possible, and it may be necessary to resort to deep geological disposal in boreholes. Although, remarkably, their definition of a deep borehole seems to be about 150 meters, which doesn't seem very deep to me at all. But nonetheless, it's very clear in this documentation that deep borehole disposal is being very seriously considered as a means of disposing highly toxic nuclear waste here in the UK. And the project, the research project for that, is being led by Professor Fergus Gibb of Sheffield University, not too far away from where I'm standing right now in North Nottinghamshire. And, you know, of course, the reality is if you stop fracking, if you prevent the unconventional gas industry from getting its bits in the ground, then you also prevent a network of deep boreholes being constructed for the potential usage of disposing of toxic nuclear waste. Now, this consultation document, which runs to nearly 300 pages, actually looks at the impact, or purports to look at the impact on all life as a result of this. But, you know, it's absurd because, you know, it's basically saying, yeah, we've looked at it, but there's no issue there. And when you actually see that part of the consultation was with Public Health England, and Public Health England share a facility with Porton Down, and everything that Porton Down is involved in, then you wonder really whether or not there's been a genuine consultation or simply yet another desktop exercise to make it look like they're going through consultation. So I posted some links to these documents yesterday. I'll post them again today. Sadly, very, very few people will read them until it's, well, hopefully it's never too late, because, you know, we can always take peaceful, direct action to prevent these socio-psychopaths from pumping this toxic waste into the ground. So, and Sheffield, of course, has another unfortunate link with 5G, because as we've stated now for the past month plus, the real purpose for the removal of trees in Sheffield is for the successful implementation of 5G. And, you know, a city with 35,000 trees was never going to be a suitable place for 5G to operate because of the frequencies with which it uses. So they had to start the process early, take down the trees, under the guise of, well, it's to protect our roads and our pavements, and some of them are diseased anyway. But I think an increasing number of people are beginning to realise that is a complete crock. It is truly remarkable how many people just want to hang on to the official narrative. And their immediate reaction is to say, no, it has nothing to do with 5G, without looking at any of the evidence. And, you know, normally I simply link them to the University of Surrey paper and refer them to section 3.1, which explains quite succinctly how trees, and particularly trees in foliage, are a major problem to the 5G frequencies. So I think there is still a temporary hold on the tree removal process in Sheffield, and I suspect that this is due to allow the awareness to subside a little bit, to allow the heat to die down, and then they will quietly get back on with the tree removal, or hope to get back on with the tree removal process, which, by the way, we know is also going on elsewhere. And of course, recently Mark Steele was successful in getting articles into the national press, making his observations that there were problems in Gateshead with the LED street lighting and the supposed control system that had been installed on top of these street lights, which was a test bed for 5G. Well, Gateshead Council have vehemently denied these allegations, yet without putting forward any evidence to support their denial. So, you know, fortunately, the people of Gateshead are now on the case and asking the right questions of the council. So, you know, Gateshead Council are certainly not going to get off the hook by simply putting out a bland denial that there's any 5G test going on. But, you know, as I have always made the observation, you know, do your own research. This is so crucial. Now, you know, the reality is that a small percentage of people are going to do their research. The vast majority are either too busy or just cannot bring themselves to face reality, and you know, just want to keep working, drinking, and you know, keep a roof over the head, food on the table, and hope that it all goes away. Well, if it does go away, it's going to be because there are a few people, an increasing few people, but a few people who are prepared to challenge the orthodox narrative. And, you know, let's start with this on May the 3rd, because until such time as Jeremy Corbyn gets the opportunity to demonstrate that he is genuinely a man of the people, and that he has the courage to stand up to the full force of the establishment, of those who believe themselves to be the rightful rulers of not just the former British Empire, but the planet. And it's only when Jeremy Corbyn gets into office and people see that actually there's no difference whatsoever, that people will start to realise that they actually need to get very creative. Otherwise, it's simply going to be more of the same. So, whilst I completely understand why it is that people do not wish to participate in the system, all I can say is that the system itself is very grateful for the fact that you don't participate, because it knows fine well that if you did participate, you certainly wouldn't be voting for an individual or a party that they consider to be the easiest party or easiest individual to manipulate, to pursue their agenda of absolute insanity against the human race. So really, you know, we're in a very testing time. Now, the reality is that, you know, when things get so intense, we might just be a lot closer to a breakthrough than maybe we want to realize. So if you're watching this, you are clearly capable of independent thought. You are clearly capable of using your powers of discretion and discernment. And I know many of you watching this are very active in some way, shape or form about trying to bring about the changes that we all know we need to see. But let's keep throwing those pebbles in the pond. Let's keep spreading the word. Let's keep encouraging people to do their own research and make it very clear to them that the establishment will never, ever say that. And, you know, how does the establishment shut down those of us who are trying to get the word? Well, you know, the likes of Facebook, who still are blocking the Ian Rowland Crane page from any visibility beyond myself. YouTube restricting the algorithm so that the pond of reach, if you like, is much smaller, which is why it's so important for more and more people to do whatever they feel they can do about sharing the information and getting the word out there and encouraging people to step up to the plate. So thanks for joining me today. Hopefully this cloud is going to disappear and we are in for a pleasant day. So make the most of it. And I'll be back with more insanity tomorrow morning at 8:30. Thanks a lot.